Hello, this is episode 3 of the Read the Manga podcast with Corey and Zach. That's Corey, I'm Zach. Today we're going to be talking about the horror psychological deconstructionist mecha manga series Bokurano. I hope I pronounced that right. So,
Sounds about
uh,
right.
for those who have never seen or read the manga, just letting you know, we're going to be spoiling everything in our discussion of it. And there's some pretty graphic stuff in there that listeners with sensitive ears should probably tune out of. There's definitely some child endangerment that we might want to get into a little bit, but we're going to try not to be too graphic for the sake of this podcast.
I mean, technically, Pokemon has child endangerment because who would let kids run around
True.
wild animals? But
Yeah.
we're
Like
talking about like the watching a car crash happen kind of like stuff that you put the advisory on. Like it gets kind of brutal. Like
yeah. You're not going to find the 4 Kids dub of this anywhere. It would be 5 minutes long.
that's what Cubics is.
Wait, what?
I don't know.
Anyway, so I this was the first time I had ever read this manga or watched this anime. This was recommended on the request of Corey. So Corey, why don't you give a little intro to this?
Well, during high school, I was just kind of getting my toes wet in the mecha stuff
Mhm.
and survival game stuff, of course. This kind of fit both. It was back when manga updates was going hard, so it was in my recommendeds
Mm.
somehow. I think it was recommended through Planetus or something like that, one of those seinens.
Yeah.
But yeah, I read it, and it's one of those series where I find it interesting that reading it in high school when I'm like 15 or whatever versus
Mm.
now as a 27-year-old dude who has a kid himself,
Yeah.
uh, you definitely get a different feeling from it. Like, so that's one interesting thing about it. I also never watched it. I only read
Mm.
it before I watched it. I also looked into it because it was upset, like how Full Metal Alchemist diverges.
Yeah.
Like this anime did that pretty
Yeah.
pretty, but
Yeah. But that's
I
interesting
found out
because
why it does that is because the director of the anime personally hated Bokurano.
yeah, it was kind of like how Paul Verhoeven read Starship Troopers and he's like, "This sucks. I'm going to change it." But yeah, no, it's kind of interesting how the author has this extremely bleak view of humanity and wants the manga to be, at least the way it read to me, was as unsentimental and uncompromising as possible. Like we're going to get into the darkest depths of what humans are capable of. Whereas like the anime was like, the director was like, well, I mean, some of the kids can live, right? And the manga writer's like, no, that's not my manga, but do whatever the hell you want. So the
That's
anime
why
director, I feel
that's
like
why I
he
like the
can't, he
manga
kind of,
more.
yeah, me too. Like I feel like the anime director kind of softened things and sentimentalized them a little bit. Like I didn't really like that. Like
I liked how I liked how hard of a decision Kana had to make in the manga,
which one was
or
Kana?
Kana,
Kana? Oh yeah, where she has to
versus
kill the.
versus you know in the anime, like I rewatched the last 2 episodes of the anime, and it just seemed like it seemed like a fanfic. Like there's like it was artificial. I mean, it's already artificial. It's fiction, but like
Mhm.
maybe the problem was I read it, then I watched it. I'm not gonna say reading it twice did anything like that.
Yeah, I mean it could
And
be
I and
it.
I've been someone who's enjoyed series where, I mean, we just did Death Note. The
Yeah,
anime and the manga aren't exact.
no, but this
Same
is
with same with Yu Yu Hakusho.
out
But
of everything we
this one
talked
bothered
about,
me.
yeah, out of everything we talked about, this is probably the starkest difference in terms of plot, themes, and like general tone between the anime and the manga. Like
Like
the anime is a completely different thing than the manga is and is going for a completely different thing.
I'm gonna say this outright. For everybody who keeps saying it's like Neon Genesis but more depressing, like that is completely subjective. Like whether it's depressing or not. I personally have a fear of, like, my mortality. I make
Mhm.
it pretty clear a lot. I will live forever somehow. I'll figure it out. find stone mask
Yeah.
or something. But
Yeah.
what I find is the key thing is like, yeah, you're going into this where every character is going to die, but let me point something out to you, everybody there. Every character, unless they are immortal, eventually dies.
Well, yeah, the manga has this embrace of the inevitability of death, and at a certain point, the characters cease to be afraid of it
Yep.
because they know it's around the corner no matter what. Whereas the difference is that with Neon Genesis, I think the reason why it's seen as more depressing is because the characters to the very end aren't able to comprehend their own mortality and are still trying to run away from death and are still afraid of it.
In what,
Whereas
Neon Genesis?
in Neon Genesis, yeah.
Yeah,
Whereas
okay.
in Bokurano, there's the first few kids that have that like mortal fear of death, like Kako, I think that was his name, the one that was like kind of the rapist kid. He wasn't really taking it well. But then
He was, yeah.
eventually as the series goes and you get down to the last few kids, like they kind of just start to realize like, hey, there's no escaping this. Everybody's gonna die. We have to do this to save the universe, and we just have to kind of accept it and be okay with it. And I feel the manga gradually accepts the death of the characters as the reader does. Like
Well, I mean, we literally see the kids go, because so and so is able to do this, I could do this.
yeah.
It's like the built upon wisdom of the pilots.
Yeah.
And being there in the cockpit the whole time, I think, is one of the key things. Not a lot of mecha anime do that, where it's like the whole cast is piloting the same mech and they're all there in the same battles.
Yeah.
They all kind of take part. They throw hints, they help each other out. They're not truly alone. That's why when you get to the end, as it's kind of like what Square Enix did with Final Fantasy VII. After Aerith gets got in the original game, you just sit there and you see on your screen that empty spot. It doesn't reconsolidate. That you just literally have a blank spot on your screen looking at you, and that's like those chairs.
Yeah, exactly. The chairs
as
and
they're
the
fighting,
lights.
it just gets emptier and emptier and sadder.
Yeah.
And
Lonelier, definitely.
yeah, lonelier. Yeah, that's a better word. And that's why, like, I think the conversation where you should just jump ship and not read it or finish the series is when Kiri talks with Tanaka in the manga. That is by far one of my favorite speeches in the last while, where Kiri sits there and he was a very
he's a chubby boy.
Yeah. And he sits there and he's like, hey, if I'm not going to pilot the robot to win, take me out, put someone else in this pilot seat. And she essentially explains, like, look, like, first he says any movie in which anyone dies, in his opinion, is a sad story. Whether it's someone on the side, an extra, or anybody. If you're showing a narrative and you have casualties in it, he's gonna say it's a sad story, is what he was saying.
He was he's like probably the most like empathetic character in the series, because like he watches a fucking Jackie Chan movie and he empathizes with the guys that are getting kicked in the face and killed off screen, where it's like, that's not supposed to be the focus of the movie. The movie is supposed to be, you're supposed to be happy when the hero wins and all the enemies are dead. But he's like, no, like, life is
that's
precious.
A society thing that's been crafted. And that's why he's conflicted, because he's like, he doesn't fit that mold.
Yeah, and because his entire life he's kind of been an extra. Like, he's kind of like, he doesn't feel like the main character in his own story. And I feel like
he's a mob.
What?
He's a mob.
A mob?
That's why they call him Mob Psycho.
Oh, Mob Psycho.
Background character.
Like an NPC.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, he's kind of got that thing where I feel like he's kind of been ignored and looked over his entire life. And you kind of do it at first.
He even admits it, though.
Yeah.
He sits there as he's contemplating his mortality. He's more concerned about, one, his cousin, and two, the fact that he is the first pilot that knows what the game's about.
Yeah.
Like, he knows once he wins that battle, an entire universe gets annihilated. Like Tournament of Power. Like,
yeah, dude, was the Tournament of Power influenced by this? Because it seems super similar.
No, I mean, honestly, it's just, I mean, honestly, any character engaging in a death match, one world's going to end and another is going to continue on. You know,
Well, yeah, but
it's
like I feel like the author of Dragon Ball Super might have read this because like this it's eerily similar. Like the amount of universes are similar, the amount of battles are similar. The fact that there's this childish fucking like cherub thing that's kind of leading it and kind of like showing this callous disregard for the lives of the people that like I don't know, like the parallels are weird. Like
yeah. Now that you put it out there, I mean, it's kind of like I don't know though. Is this like Jerry's walking and crying because it's like they both have dogs, or you know, like they're both similar?
oh, because it had dogs. I don't know. Like it might just be parallel thinking, honestly, but like I don't know. Like it's almost like
I honestly wouldn't
the
be
similar.
surprised if they use Bokurano as an influence. I mean, Dragon Ball could get away with
Yeah,
it. They use The Godfather and they use Terminator.
yeah. Like the similarities are too stark to ignore. You know what I mean? It's kind of like saying the Hunger Games wasn't influenced by Battle Royale. It's like they're almost kind of the same thing when you get down to the bare bones of it.
That's a thing though. Like you said, statistically, you put enough monkeys in front of typewriters, Shakespeare will be produced. I
Yeah.
I believe sincerely that not everybody is out to get anybody else. I think with the Hunger Games Battle Royale thing, I'm pretty sure the author at one point of Hunger Games said they were aware of Battle Royale, but they didn't check it out because they didn't want
Mm.
it to clutter
Influence
their
sort of
thing.
thing. Yeah.
I mean, I was, like with my series, you know, it's pretty much just all the things that I like and all the series I like that I put together. And
Yeah.
it's like the buffet
Stitch it
platter of
into
just
a
TV
Frankenstein's
tropes.
monster.
Yeah. Yeah, I go to
Yeah.
the TV tropes section, I look at awesome and I just but
Rule of cool.
that's uh that's what I kind of liked about this series too though, is like mecha animes, they focus on the fighting. Whereas this
Mhm.
one, it's so simplistic. Like it does the robot doesn't shoot lasers. It just moves its armor so fast that it appears as a laser.
Wait, I thought it does shoot lasers.
No. They're particle beams because they shoot
Oh,
particles, like actual
okay.
particles of the shielding. And
Laser.
lasers. And
uh,
that's the thing that I liked about it was like, you know, one joke about robot animes, and I love them. Like man, Gundam.
yeah.
Uh,
I've
getting the
probably seen like
robot.
two.
Yeah, I've you know, like Gundam. Pretty much main characters like, oh, I gotta get the robot.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know how to pilot it, but insert background thing here. They played video games. Their dad rigs Gundams, whatever. They have some kind of cheat that allows them to just pilot this thing that's more advanced than a jet fighter. Like, it's not like you know a normal civilian aircraft. You fly it with your feet, and you turn you turn with your feet, and the yokes just used to go up and down. It's pretty simple.
Mm.
Still, you need a license to fly that. Very complicated, even a
Yes.
car.
Yeah.
So what I love about this series is that as a deconstruction, and let's let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
The deconstruction aspect of it,
Yeah.
like, because this is just going to be what I was about to say is just going to be part of that anyways.
Okay.
So like we have an ensemble cast
Yeah.
of red shirts essentially, but the red shirts we care about,
Well,
like
yeah.
you know.
They it's one of those things where they're red shirts right up until they're about to die because the author does this thing where he doesn't develop the characters until they're the next pilot. So you only start getting attached to them when you know that they're going to be the next one to die, which I actually like that storytelling technique. I think it's very effective.
They use it in Record of Ragnarok. They show the two fighters,
Hmm.
they start fighting, and they give backgrounds on each as they fight. Their fight tells the story, and the
Yeah.
story justifies the fight.
Yeah.
I like stuff like that, you know.
Hmm.
It's a lot better than, you know, flashing back to that moment your mom stopped boiling water, fall on your face, and you get that last push to just beat the bad guy kind of crap. Like
What
it,
anime was that? Because that sounds familiar.
it's just an amiclation of a bunch of random anime things, dude. I think it's Parasite, My Hero.
Oh, maybe.
Like the boy, oh no, that scar on her arm reminds me that she's my mom every day, other than the fact that, you know, she's my mom every day.
Why is it always boiling water?
Kids have a fucking issue with like boiling shit falling them in over there, I guess. I don't know. They do it over here too.
You know what's funny? That shit happened to my mom too when she was a kid. She's got a scar from it.
We just need to figure out once boiling safety will be accomplished. That's going to cause writers a lot of grief because now they won't have ways to justify how their dickhead main character like.
Yeah, it's gonna ruin anime. Like once we figure out how to safely boil water.
But yeah, let's get onto that. Like, you know, it's when people went like the director of the anime said he didn't like the series.
Yes.
Which I mean I find interesting because it's like, why'd you do it? But I mean, I'm sure there are many reasons, like it's my job.
Yeah, it was probably like a job for hire kind of thing.
Or I did it because I didn't like it and I wanted to fix it.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, look at Dragon Ball Super versus GT. Everybody acts like Super came in and was like, oh, wiped away GT forever. We don't have to remember that. And now people are like, GT wasn't actually that bad.
Yeah, I mean, they're both kind of like equal levels of suck. It's just like GT is a little bit underrated and Super is a little bit overrated, but they kind of balance out at the same level, I think.
The key, though, is that the source material never changed.
Yeah.
Like, Dragon Ball stayed Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
And, they extended a lot of stuff, had fillers, all that. But, I mean, the theme of it never changed. But when you change the theme of a show, or you change the theme of a series where literally it's about something we all deal with, which is the inevitability of mortality. And like how like, it's like that movie, It's Such a Beautiful Day, except you read it every freaking chapter and you change the dynamic of it.
Yeah.
Like First Kid, the severity for it was like, I want to prove to my dad that I play soccer.
Yeah.
It's very simple because back then it was very simple.
Waku was interesting because he was the only one that didn't know he was going to die.
That's what I mean, though, is as the characters get presented more info.
Yeah.
And the reality of things and the scope of things gets put more into their lap.
Yeah. It's like whether I go quietly or whether I go kicking and screaming, the end goal is the same. Like it's going to happen no matter what.
Now here's my thing. Why children? I know like they want to say like in the, children provide more power, like some weird justification for it.
Mm-hmm.
But like the thing is they could choose any pilots they want and anybody could sign up, anyone. So why did the author pick kids?
Because they're more willing to sign up for some stupid bullshit because they don't know any better.
Yeah, they're ignorant. You want to assume innocence.
Yeah.
But as we've learned from like Komoda and Chizu, unfortunately, and few that those are two examples of like their parents were just straight up like their families and parents were just, or even what's his name, Kako, like his sister was just like, he ran away like a coward, huh? Like it's one of those things where I kind of love that the fact that he did make some characters, some of these pilots, not not so much villains or antagonists, but that's the spectrum of morality is pretty wide.
Well, yeah, because okay, so the series is called Bokurano Rs. And the thing that's interesting about the hours thing to me is, what is the hours referring to? Is it referring to the collective of humanity, or is it referring to the collective pain, fear, and anxiety of the kids? And I think it's kind of both. And I think the group of 15 kids is supposed to kind of represent the collective whole of humanity. And you're supposed to see the best and worst of everybody reflected in each of these kids. You're seeing the most virtuous type of person and the most evil type of person all kind of coagulated into one. So it's like the thing about it is that each kid, and this is another reason I don't like the anime as much, because in the manga, no matter how good or bad the kid is, each kid is essentially given equal time by the author. So you like one kid isn't valued over another. Everyone is in this together. Humanity is in this collectively. Every life is equally valuable, no matter where you fall on the morality spectrum. Whether you're some fucking psychotic, like sociopathic fucking rapist kid, or whether you're like the most fucking angelic, nicest, most empathetic kid in the world, or no matter where you fall in between, every single one of these kids' lives seems to like hold equal value, at least in the author's eyes. And that's one of the things that I liked about it that I didn't really get from the anime. Like the anime definitely played favorites. Like it kind of just ended up being about Yushiro and
Yeah.
like fucking yeah, and like I didn't like that. Like the
He
whole
became the he's the reluctant hero that becomes like, the character nobody likes, and he gets a redemption arc.
yeah, which is like that's not really what the manga is supposed to be about. The manga is about
Sitting there and being told the only solution to winning this fight is to kill everybody on the planet.
yeah.
That was like, when I sat there and read that the first time in high school, that was like one of the things where I was like, I know it's fiction and all that, but this kid's gonna perform a freaking absolute, like he's performing a Super Boo level absolute extinction attack on a
Yeah, genocide.
modern Earth. Yeah, he's genociding everybody.
Yeah, to find
This
one
kid is,
person to save everybody.
and yeah, he's needle in the haystack, and he's burning the whole haystack.
Yeah,
Doesn't care.
yeah,
But like the fact that so you're gonna direct this anime and you're gonna leave that part out.
yeah.
Like
Which is like that's kind of the whole point. Like everything is like building to that moment
the
of like how
the little
far do
robot guy was like straight up like, dude, this is gonna suck. like
yeah.
like he the only time you really see that robot thing feel a little guilty for any of these kids is when June has to fucking press the button and
Yeah, wipe out
delete
everybody.
everybody.
It's like you gotta kill a billion to save fucking like 10 billion. It's like it's horrible. It's like kind of like the Watchmen
No, he's
thing of
killing
like
10 billion to save 10 billion. It's a life for life.
well well he's
Every universe they kill is supposed to be similar to theirs.
yeah, I guess you're right. So
So
it's like
honestly, that one robot, just Zerth alone, has probably annihilated more human life than most fictional entities.
yeah, hundreds of billions of people, but that's the whole point that it's like where do you place the value? What's the difference between the us and the them? And the thing that
That's
the
the
manga
Kiri and Tanaka conversation that we go back to, though. Like
exactly.
Tanaka says, you root for who's important to you, and
Hmm.
you fight for who's important to you, and it's selfish, but that's existence because people did the same thing to get you to your spot wherever you're at that current moment is on the backs of sacrifice of millions of lives prior. So of course, Kiri's supposed to respect all life. That's his decision if that's how he looks at things. But she pointed out, like, even if you appreciate everything in the world as a living being,
Hmm.
you are human and you are going to have to make the decision on which things are more important, because even though everything can be important, some things are more important than others.
Yeah, it's like it's the whole like my tribe versus somebody else's tribe. And at the end of the day, there's that human instinct to like even if you conceptually know that all life is equal, your emotions are going to tell you otherwise, and you're going to protect your family. Like you would kill somebody to protect your daughter. Like that's one of those things where it's like you're
And
not
that's
you're
where
not
the anime messes it up.
yeah.
The
Yeah.
manga shows the cycle continues because it's supposed to be the cycle of conflict and entropy and the never-ending, battle we wage against non-existence.
Hmm.
And like, by continuing the cycle, it shows like just same as death, the same as anything, the same as war, conflict, all those things. They're not just gonna go away.
Hmm.
Unless you're the kid who pilots the robot, fights for 30 something hours and ends the cycle because I got mad and a jiffy in my britches over the freaking original ending of the series and I got in
Yeah.
charge of directing it. Like, I don't know, at least with Full Metal Alchemist, it was kind of justified. But, because it was like not even fully written yet. But this is a series that it went T to B.
Mhm.
And then this guy was like, nah, I don't like this. And I'm just like, let someone else do it then. But like,
Well, but that's okay because like we can have
it's
two different things. Like you like that's one of those things
this
that
is
I have
where this is
with
where I get
adaptations. Like
personal with it though.
I know,
I'm
but
like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, the thing that makes Bokurano even significant in the manga world is the fact that it has the philosophy that it has. Not a lot of series has its philosophy. So when they do the anime, it's like you're just turning into a robot series.
But I mean, to me, like, I don't like it. I don't think it's as good, but I think it's okay for somebody that wants a story that's a little bit more palatable. Like, I'm like if that's your vibe, then fine.
They could watch
Like,
Gurren Lagann.
yeah, but I just like I get it, like, because so you're always going to have different interpretations of art, even if you're making that art itself. So like when you're adapting stuff, you're always going to kind of change stuff and fuck things around and stuff. And I don't really mind somebody going off with their own vision, like, because like at the end of the day, I don't think an anime needs to be like a straight one-for-one adaptation of a manga. Like,
No,
I
of
think it
course
could
not.
change things around, because like
We wouldn't have the potato chip scene if that was the case.
yeah, because like no matter what, like even if the anime ruined it, we still have the manga. It's not like the manga is erased just because the
I'm
anime
not
exists.
saying, well, maybe I said it ruined it, but my
Yeah.
main issue with it is like it's just as bothersome to me because it's like the things he changed were based on something that it was literally like the off. I mean, Bokurano is kind of like a litmus test. Like it's not quite as bad as Funny Games, but it's
Mhm.
like you definitely learn about yourself reading it, seeing how these kids are treated and what situations they're put through, you know, and
Yeah.
their whole mindset. You know, it's a funeral procession of a series. That's it.
Yeah.
Like you're watching these kids just walk down this line and just nope on out, you know, of the narrative. They're gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And they're gone
and that's
forever. They never
and
come
that's
back.
I mean, that's what I mean though, is like it's like I don't know. I get what you mean. Like you have the manga. If I have the manga to read, if I like it, and you
Yeah.
know I've seen the
I
anime,
mean,
I don't have.
that's
But
that's why we're here, right?
but my main thing is I want to be clear that there is a difference between having your own adaptation and like complete, because like you know what, if you want to add filler, go ahead. You want to do whatever, go ahead. I don't care.
Mhm.
But do not compromise the integrity of what it is. You know, it's kind of like when you get a car and you change the chassis. You could change every other part of the car, but you know it'll look like a Mustang. But the moment you change the body style, it's not a Mustang anymore.
Yeah.
It's like a different car, you know. And that's what I mean is like with Bokurano, we don't even have a Bokurano anime, in my opinion. We have an anime that has the name Bokurano on it. It has a lot of similar characters, but it is as different as all the alternate universes in that series. That's what the anime is to me, I
Well, sure,
guess.
sure, but I think
Because
it's okay.
my main issue is like you read it and you're like, that's depressing. I want to save some of the kids. Well, you know, here's the thing. Like, none of the kids were safe from the get-go. The only difference between them and any other human being was like they were given knowledge of when they were gonna go.
Yeah.
And they had to pull the trigger on their own. And then to put it even more seriously, they had to have a motivator, which is the whole universe gets destroyed. So it's like when you take all those things into account, of course it's going to be kind of depressing. Of course it's going to be stressful.
Mhm.
But you know, like I'm a father and freaking rereading the series when I'm an adult with a daughter,
Mhm.
where literally a guy's watching his daughter have her legs melted off and was like, I have to keep my journalistic integrity going while my daughter's legs are melting off.
It's so fucking callous.
And the scene that really got
uh,
me later was when the two dads, the military guy and that guy, sit there and they're like, "Dude, we went through our family pictures. We only got like a few of them.
yeah.
We never spent time with our kids, you know." And I think like you know, I definitely have a different opinion on it now. Uh, maybe I would have liked the anime more back in high school because I would have been like, "This is depressing."
Yeah,
But
but I
it's one of those things where I I genuinely feel like this series I've been having anxiety about mortality, and this series actually kind of helped me. It was a little therapeutic. I'm
it's
gonna say
good.
that. I mean, it's just the fact that it is an existential crisis of a series. You know, I feel like, and honestly, if I were in their situation, I'd probably react like Kako. I'd be like,
Yeah.
"This, I'm out.
Yeah,
I'm
probably.
out,"
I think most people would react
or
like Kako.
or we'd be the kid in the beginning. Don't know what's going on. Just beat the monster. fall off,
Yeah,
die.
he had the best because he didn't have to think about it. He had
Yeah,
no idea he was gonna
he was
die.
the
He had a,
stereotypical Gundam pilot kid.
he was the only pure one out of them because he was like you got to see what the kid would act like if he didn't know that death was forthcoming. Like he got
Same
off
with
the
Kamado
best.
though.
Which one was
Kamado,
Kamado?
he was the kid whose dad was the construction
Oh yeah,
business
he
owner.
didn't realize he was gonna die either. But that kid was
He
an
didn't.
asshole.
Yeah, and he used the robot to murder people.
Yeah.
Because his dad on a construction company. He's like, I'm helping my daddy out, and then he crushed his dad.
But that kind of goes into the theme of the rest of the manga of like
it's ours.
Like, yeah, it's like
any of them have a chance to use it.
I know, but he didn't start getting concerned about death until his own father died. Where it's like, why do we draw those lines at the value of life? Like he was basically like because he was like destroying the town and stuff.
Yeah,
and he
murdering people.
Yeah, because but this comes down to that very simplistic morality of the manga where they're like, hey, like you're killing a bunch of people, that's not okay. And he's like, oh yeah, it's fine, we're doing it to save everyone. But then as soon as like his father becomes a sacrifice in that's when he gets emotional about it. And that's one of those things where it's like we're okay with bad things happening to other people for the greater good as long as they're not happening to us. And that's something that the manga is really trying to like hammer
not
home.
even for the greater good, just for any benefit in any way. Like,
well, it's all about the greater good. He was making the argument that it was for the greater good, but it's the whole thing of like if you had a button and it said if you press this button one person's gonna die but it's gonna save like 1,000 people, do you press the button? Of course you do if it's a stranger. But then what if it's your daughter? What if it's your sister? What if it's your friend? Like that's like the core of what the manga is about. Like, where do we draw the lines between the lives that we find valuable in our own circle versus like the value of like the life of some fucking African kid 5,000 miles away? It's like the lives
said that she's like, kids starve to death every day in Africa.
Yeah.
While she's talking to her dad and he's just looking at her like, yeah, but you're gonna go pilot that giant robot and die. And she's like, kids die every day.
Yeah, exactly. and like some of the kids were able to wrap their heads around that concept and accept it. Whereas like the only one that was able to extend that empathy and that humanity to everybody equally was Kyrie. Everyone else had different levels of like where they place the value of like who's close to them versus who isn't. And then it kind of goes into the whole thing of like Jun not actually being related to Kana and how much does blood relation go into it? Like, is your family the people that like you decide are your family, or is your family the people that are blood related to you? Was Tanaka more related to Jun than Kana was? I don't think she was, because she was never a mother to him. She left and abandoned him for 13 years. Whereas Kana was the sister that would always fucking stick by him, even though she knew that they weren't blood related.
So do you think that's kind of an interesting point that his chair in the end turns out to be her jet fighter seat?
Yeah, because he finally accepts her as his mother. Like that's the thing where it's like he finally is able to extend that empathy to somebody that he never would have cared about before.
Because honestly, if you think about it, kind of like that. What was his name? KG, I think. He kept saying that Kana, he points out like, you're mad at her because her mom died or their mom died during childbirth, and it turns out only her mom died. Mm-hmm. But it's like kind of funny that out of all the kids, I feel like she was probably the strongest kid out of all of them for being Kana? A 10-year-old. Yeah. And the fact that if you look at it in a certain light, it's like he always kind of had a mom. It was just his younger sister. Like, she was always taking care of him and taking his shit, like.
Yeah, pretty much. She bore the brunt of his abuse because she knew that he didn't have anybody else.
And that's a whole thing too, is like, she asked, that what's his name not to interfere. Mm-hmm. His friend, KG, the kid whose parents designed the big tower.
Kanji?
Yeah. And what's it called? She asked him not to interfere.
Yeah.
With her and June. So it's like
It was
really the
family
series
business.
isn't so much just about robots. I mean, there are some robots in it, but it's a series about relationships.
Well, yeah, it's about people.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's another thing of like it's essentially about what it's about. That goes back to the title, Bokurano Ours. What is ours? What bonds us together? Is it the mental bonds that we have? Is it the fact that we're all people and we should all be equally loving and accepting of everybody? Is it the blood? Like the manga goes through a bunch of different scenarios of like how do we define what lives are valuable to us? And that's another thing with Maki, the girl with the adoptive parents, of when she says it takes. I don't really like how the manga addresses this because, like, I don't believe in corporal punishment, but I understand the underlying point where she's like, it takes my father so much courage for him to hit me because by hitting me, he's treating me like his actual daughter, even though he knows that we're not blood related. So he always has to pass that barrier of knowing that he's hitting a girl that's not actually his blood, but he's still like mentally like accepted that she is his daughter. And she's basically given him so much credit and so much respect for being able to cross that mental boundary and think of her as a daughter rather than as an adopted daughter. And that's something that Jun's adoptive father was never able to do with him. He said, he's like, my father treats me with kid gloves. He doesn't actually like treat me like a son. And that's what caused Jun to resent his father, well, his adoptive father, because Ushiro never actually treated him like a son. He would never actually punish him. And that's why Jun Yushiro just had to lash out at Kana and hurt something,
Because he was
because
trying to get him to punish him or treat him like a son in some way.
yeah, because he never showed that Jun had that meaning to him. Like even though it's a negative thing, even though punishment is a negative thing, it's like it's almost like that porcupine thing of like sometimes to get close to people you have to like take the risk to hurt them. And the people that were close to Jun never actually took the risk to actually hurt him. Like they all treated him too well, basically, and he realized that the relationships were fake because of that.
Yeah, he essentially has a lot of characters tell him to knock shit off.
Yeah.
But that's
But
that's kind of interesting because
Tanaka, before we even know that Tanaka's his mother, Tanaka actually goes forward and she's like, Jun, cut that shit out. She's the only one that would actually like interfere when he was hitting his sister. So that was like almost like it was forging that mother-son relationship before Jun even knew that like she might be his mom. So she was the only one that was actually treating him like a member of her family or his family.
yeah, I mean in the weird way that he wanted it, yeah. And
Yeah.
that's the one thing that the series does pretty well is it shows a lot of different angles of how people could come to be how they are, you know?
Yeah.
Like you got the one kid whose dad left them.
Hmm.
So he's like the dad of his house. And then you have one kid who looks up to his dad because he's a construction businessman. He's
Yeah.
a dick to people.
Little Donald Trump Jr.
Yeah. Yeah, that's well, that was kind of the thing I was getting from that. And
Yeah,
then,
read him in 2021.
they got those two. Then you even get stories where it's just simpler, you know, like, man, this was just a heavy chapter. Is our older brother coming back? No. But, let's take a break and see a different kid die. What's his problem? Oh, his friend has a heart condition.
Mm-hmm.
He needs my heart. It's 100% match.
Yeah, and that's
Love
interesting.
triangle. That was actually one of the more, like, people will probably skim over that, not really care or notice as much. That one was one of my favorite. Moji, I think that was his
Yeah.
name. Moji. Yeah, I like that one a lot. Like, that was a really well executed little romance story within the story where it's a love triangle. And of course,
Mhm.
I even rereading it, I didn't catch that girl had a crush on Moji the whole time. Like, that was a kind of a funny twist.
Yeah, because he assumed that she and the dying kid were the ones that were going to be together, and the fact that he actually before like he decided on the heart transplant thing, he contemplated killing his friend using the robot so that the girl would be with
He
him.
contemplated murdering his friend before the robot.
Oh, did
He
he?
said that. He said that the only way she would ever be able to leave his side in the bed
As if he died.
and have her heart not be broken is if he died in a way that had nothing to do with his heart condition. And
Yeah.
he sits there, he's like, I'll be honest, like I thought about murdering him before I got Zerth. Then I
Yeah.
definitely thought about murdering him after I got Zerth. Then I found out that I'll be dead anyways from piloting Zerth. So fuck it, give him my heart.
Well, I think that's why Moji's actions are some of the most impressive, because he kind of
Exactly.
he kind of represents that thing in humans of like that temptation to go down the wrong path morally and still sticking to your guns and doing the right thing. Where it's like Kyrie was going to do the right thing no matter what, because that's just how he was. He was an empathetic person. Whereas like Moji kind of had that darkness in him where it's like, I could go in a really, really bad way, but I'm choosing not to.
I think he would have honestly killed his friend if he didn't find out he was going to die.
Mm.
I think that was the thing, was some people are willing to do horrible things when you have a long stretch ahead of you to enjoy them.
Mm-hmm.
But even if he killed his friend in the battle, skedaddled from the battle, he would only get less than 48 hours to spend time with the girl before the world's blown up, or he kills the guy and he dies.
Yeah.
So the thing that I think is interesting about Moji's story is it had like this, it's definitely like an example of like, I don't know. It's kind of funny and weird. Like, remember when Walter shot Mike in Breaking Bad?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. Like, you're just sitting there, and it's like you just kind of feel like everything that you're working towards was excessive and unnecessary. Like, you're just
Yeah.
like, well, if I'm dead, do I even care about these goals? And
Mm.
that's why I think the series is really interesting, because it's like, you have people like that all the time. Like, oh, why'd you suddenly become like a super rich dude about to die, donates all his money.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, because I don't need it anymore. I don't care. And I think that was kind of one of the things that was interesting about the Moji story, is like, you ultimately want to think he's altruistic by giving his heart to his friend. But
Mm-hmm.
honestly, it's just like a freaking consolation prize for the fact that he was going to freaking kill that dude. That dude lucked out that he got a giant robot that was going to kill him. Like, his friend honestly dodged the biggest freaking bullet in the world. And it's played off like it's super sweet. Like, she hugs him, is like, your heart's in there. I'm like, that is the heart of a cold-blooded killer who was about to murder this dude. Like, that's why I love it. Because it's like, even I for a second was tricked, like, oh, Moji's not the worst kid in the robot. And I'm like, no, even before the robot, none of these kids looked like they were going to murder someone. He
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Like, maybe Chizu, Chizuru, she had some good reasons to murder
Yeah.
people. She probably would have gone away with it.
Well,
And
Chizuru, I understand.
Moda was obviously a freaking sociopath, and Kaku, he was a piece of shit.
But I think I understand Chizuru's perspective. Like that,
Oh yeah,
she's one of the ones where it's like she kills people and accepts collateral damage. But at that point, like, of course you're gonna fucking want to kill people. Like, so some of the most horrible stuff that can happen to a person happened to you, and it's like you're 12. Like, how the hell
How
are
do
you
you feel
supposed to
about how her
process
dad
that?
How do you feel about how her dad responded to all that, even after being told what happened to his daughter?
I think um
When he has a
but
conversation with the journalist and the military guy.
I think by culturally, I think by American standards, we would consider that guy kind of a piece of shit. Like, we would want that guy to like go and like straight up murder the people that raped his daughter and not really care like who else was involved. But he was the one that was like, I mean, it kind of balances out because like something bad happened to her, but she ended up having like killing people to get to this one guy. So it's like she's not a saint either, but it's like I feel like from an American standard, it's like we'd still be like, dude, like it's still your fucking daughter, man. But I feel like from the manga's perspective, the manga still has this sort of
Well,
idea
he
of
doesn't
like
get off scot-free. Like,
who, the rapist?
no, that dude, no, that guy actually gets off scot-free.
Yeah, he's the one that gets off, like he's
But
fine. He gets stabbed a little bit, but
the dad keeps pointing out, he's like, he started a charity organization to help the people that got hurt.
Mhm.
And he's fully invested his whole life into it. And people are like, oh, he's a great guy. He keeps working hard, blah, blah. And I think, I'm going to be a dick here, but dude's a terrible father.
Yeah,
like,
fuck that guy.
Yeah, like, it's a cop-out.
Yeah.
One of his daughters went and like eloped with the guy who raped his other daughter. And then on
Hmm.
top of it, he sits there and goes, well, she murdered people, so now I don't have to feel as bad about what happened to her
Yeah.
because she got her revenge. Now he just seemed like he was an autopilot kind of dad. Like,
Well, he was very like put the whole above everyone else, and I think like from the manga's perspective, he's kind of right because that's the whole thing of like where he's not putting the value of his daughter's life
no,
above the
I'm
value of
talking
other
about
people's lives.
we go back a few steps before she's in the giant robot. How does your daughter end up getting in a situation like that without you having anything to do with it?
Oh
Like
yeah.
that, I think this kind of comes back to the cultural thing. A lot of they get overworked so much there.
Hmm.
A lot of these kids think they're full ass grown adults when they're in middle school because they don't see adults anymore because once they're that old, they don't have to be babied. So the
Hmm.
parents could go back to work.
Yeah,
And
they're
like,
just working all the time.
yeah, so they're always gone. And they point that out. Like, and I find that hilarious too. Like, after all that shit happens with his daughter, he still continues to overwork and
Hmm.
overwork even and throw himself into his work 100%.
Yeah.
And it's like the same thing with the military guy. He's like, he sits there and all three of those guys go, we didn't spend enough time with our daughters. But which one murdered the fuck out of people? The one who wasn't in the military and the one who wasn't a journalist. That guy's
Yeah.
daughter. The
Yeah.
one who was just a normal business dude. Like,
Yeah.
and if you look at the other two, they probably had some focuses from their careers or whatever. I don't know. It seemed like they engaged with their kid more. That guy pretty much left his daughter to raise his other daughter, which is probably not a great idea.
Yeah.
But that the whole Chizuru story, though, like that's why it's interesting though. Like, the guy's not a terrible person, but he's kind of shitty dad for that kind of stuff happening. It's just like very interesting to see how a lot of these characters, the parents, respond and react afterwards. Like, a lot of them shut down. Some of them became more, you know, what was it, involved in stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Some of them became more involved in their kids' lives or in their other kids' lives. Some of them completely shut down and were just grieving. Like they'll have different reactions based
Yeah.
on their own relationships to their kids. Like, I don't know. I think which of the parents was your favorite? Which one did you like as a parent? Which one did you relate to the most?
Hmm. Relate to?
Yeah, or just appreciated their perspective.
Uh, let's see. I think I liked Maki's parents,
Oh yeah.
the ones that adopted, because when June and Machi go to visit, uh, they tell him like it's all right. We're essentially adults. We made the responsibility to sacrifice, and they just get like their asses whooped.
Yeah.
Like, you guys are
Yeah.
kids. You can't be making these decisions for us. We're supposed to be the ones going out and doing that.
Yeah. They were the only ones that actually acted like involved parents. They were the ones that were like actually like no, like my daughter's 12 years old. Like they're the only ones that actually thought of their kids as kids. Everyone else just kind of thought of their kids as these sort of autonomous beings of like, oh, Billy, you're 12 years old now, time to go out into the world, you're not my problem anymore. And I think that does speak to something kind of fucked up in Japanese culture where it does kind of lead to this like Lord of the Flies scenario where like the kids essentially have to build their own society together because at that point they don't even have any parental guidance. They're
There's
freaking
something about
13.
there's something about that Lord of the Flies scenario that is just thrown
Yeah.
around so much, like disappearing classroom. Like,
Yeah.
what happens when seventh graders are in charge of an entire school because they murdered the teachers because the school got completely displaced in the middle of a desert?
Yeah. The Japanese love messing with that plot line. And I feel like that is because I didn't really realize that how absent Japanese parents were from their children's lives. And that makes a lot more sense that Japan is so concerned with
I'm
how
not
middle
sure if that's a stereotype or not, but
it
it
might be.
apparently the workload is pretty brutal over there.
Yeah. But I
They
under
don't take siestas.
yeah, but just based on like the prevalence of that Lord of the Flies kind of trope, like I don't know, it just like it would make sense if that was the case, that Japanese parents were generally less involved. Because like you read something like Gantz, and like a lot of the kids are like living alone by the time they're like 15, 16 years old. Like their
Or look
parents just
at
pay for them to have a little private house.
look at Bleach. It does the opposite. It's a series where the dad's always there.
Yeah. He's a
That's
little
that's like one thing Bleach has up on a lot of these other series. It's like Naruto, no parents.
yeah.
Hunter x Hunter, no parents. Uh,
Luffy's dad's kind of absent as well, isn't he?
Luffy's dad, Goku's parents.
Yeah. Yeah, that is, dude. Ichigo
There is
has an
no
awesome
parental
dad.
supervision in anime world. Once you hit 13, you're essentially a freaking adult. Like they give you your license, like do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Did I murder someone? Go over there into the Seinens.
Ishin Kurosaki, top 5 best anime dads, I think.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
What's it called though? That's why Bokurano is really interesting too, because we get to see the emotional collateral damage
Yeah.
on these people. Like some of the parents, they're just like, why the hell do I care?
Yeah.
I don't have my kid anymore. That's
Yeah.
like the whole reason for me doing anything.
Yeah.
And that's why that's why it was interesting to get through the series and then start it kind of fresh again and realize like Machi herself, when she was like, I could have kept these kids from dying, but I didn't. I never, you don't really notice it, but she's the one who points out, hey, the cave's over here, guys.
Yeah, no, she is. Like they point that out, where like she's the one that led them into the cave. She's the one that picked them for the thing.
She's the only one who interacts with Coppelli when he talks first.
Because it was her job to like find the next group, basically, which is fucked up. But it's like that's another reason why I didn't like the anime as much, because they make Koyemshi Dung Beetle. They kind of turn
him into a dickhead.
Well, they turn him into
he's a villain.
Yeah, they turn him into a villain, where it's like they shouldn't have that easy of an out. Like the whole point is that there isn't a villain. We're all fighting each other and we're all in this together.
Exactly.
So like having Koyemshi there as a scapegoat is kind of fucked up. Whereas like in the manga, it makes it clear that Koyemshi is kind of just in the same boat as everybody else. Like
and not only that, in the manga, they have a lot of boogeymen they reference and never actually come to fruition with. Like you have one of the biggest ones is it's like 1984, where they're always talking about like Eurasia and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, in Bokurano, it's America.
Yeah, they're worried that the Japanese is at war with America.
Well, they're in a Cold War because America is a superpower, and apparently in their world, we're just still doing the same shit we're doing now. So,
yeah, but Japan's actually fighting back a little bit.
America helped.
Yeah,
they're like, oh, that giant cannon thing in Hawaii is related to you guys. Yeah, we'll drop a nuke on it. We don't care. Like.
But I love how the Japanese have to go and bomb Hawaii. Like, and I love how they reference that, where like one of the Japanese pilots is like, does anyone else think it's ironic that we're going and dropping nukes on Hawaii to fucking like save everybody? Like I
don't know why, but I was convinced while reading it that it was like the Japanese government asked America if they could nuke it.
Yeah, that's what happened. The Japanese essentially asked for permission, like, hey, there's this cannon thing.
Well, I thought they asked America to just nuke it.
Like, no, they use Japanese pilots to go and nuke it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's another thing too, is like this is one of the few series where your entire world tries to help out your protagonist and they're useless. Like nukes don't work. I love what Dung Beetle or whatever says about it. He's like, why'd you think a monkey could use a rock to break a tank? Like that's how he refers to the robots, and I'm just like, I love that. There's like no explanation of the robots. Also, they just exist. They are there, and they are weird, and the designs are super cool. Like
the designs are cool, but okay,
very Gantz.
You got to give it to the anime for having some cool ass robot battles. Like the animation was badass in that anime.
I mean. You've seen how many mecha animes, Zach? Like 5?
I've seen Evangelion, Gurren Lagann, and this one. I think those are the only 3.
Okay.
Yeah. You've probably
Yeah,
seen like 30.
that's the top 3 robot fight animes for you is Bokurano then.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, Evangelion is like, I still think that series is perfect, and I'll take the robot battles in that over anything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but
It's a kind of interesting genre to be in is the robot stuff because it's so closely tied to science that you can't help but keep them interweave with like you get a lot of good philosophy out of robot animes actually
yeah,
like just you see Gundam right there like boom you're gonna be sitting there like it's like watching Star Trek for a
yeah,
lot of these series.
yeah. It's using science fiction to examine the current world and imagine what the because Gundam is essentially like it's a critique on militarism, isn't it?
Gundam, the name Gundam comes from combining the words gun and freedom.
Oh, I thought it was like, damn, it's a big gun.
Pretty much. That's what it looks like when you see a beam rifle. But like, yeah, it's depending on the Gundam you watch too. There's one where it's like
There's like,
Vietnam.
okay.
There's one where it's about polygamy.
I
Nah,
want
no.
I want to see a Wes Anderson Gundam, but he does it in stop motion using actual Gundam models.
I mean, there's that one puppet series that I found on YouTube that's pretty crazy, like Thunderbolt something something, and it's all done using those little puppets like this with the little stick arms, and then it's pretty badass. But
Anyway, here,
yeah, as far as mecha anime goes, though, like, yeah, this is more in line with the Neon Genesis and certain Gundams. It's not. I think this series is probably the biggest counter argument to stuff like Gurren Lagann, where Gurren Lagann likes to embellish and revel in the characters getting like Gurren Lagann treats their characters like fireworks. They go in, they explode, they're really pretty cool to look at, and it's sad to see them disappear so a little bit after.
well, it uses the death of one specific character to motivate the rest. Like it has one
later,
sacrificial pawn. But
and then
like,
later they just start killing off everybody though.
God, I don't remember. I just remember like the whole like last few episodes were just like impossibly huge, ludicrous robots fighting each other. I don't really remember even like what the plot was at the end.
Essentially, as the plot continues on after Kamina, it's like once Kamina goes, the whole like no one's safe thing has been engaged. Like you're like friendly fires off on this series, and you could literally go on YouTube and just type in Gurren Lagann death montage, and it'll be just pretty much every character that most characters in the series that you get to know got in like the last 5 episodes or the last.
Then
the
why is
latter half
Kamina the only one that we remember?
Well, he's not the only one we remember.
Well, he's the only one I remember.
He's just the most prominent one because it's the first time in a series where everybody assumes like, one of the main trio can't get got. Because Gurren Lagann leans into the mecha anime too, and it kind of deconstructs it in its own way.
Well, it's more of a traditional mecha, I think. It's almost like it's like a reconstruction.
I mean, narratively, it's a parody, like to a degree. Like the robots are powered by love.
Yeah,
and evolution's powered by love. Like
Gurren Lagann is something that it takes the deconstructed tropes that Evangelion and Bokurano has done and kind of turns them back into what mecha was supposed to be about originally, while acknowledging the fact that this genre has already been dissected.
Yeah, it's a form of extremism in a different direction.
Yeah,
and like that's why I think they, I wouldn't say double feature these series at all, but I would say like, same coin of mecha anime. I feel like Bokurano is like, the polar opposite of Gurren Lagann in a lot of ways. Like, at least philosophically, I mean, they're both about robots and you both have characters dying, but it's really like in Gurren Lagann, you'll know a character's about to die because they'll probably start having a montage of their memories and moments and all that stuff, and you'll hear some music play and you'll be like, oh, stuff's about to happen. Oh, geez. But in Bokurano, it's like you don't need any of that because you already know what's going to happen. They don't need to embellish it. Most of the characters just Like,
Yeah.
it's very boring. They just
Yeah.
flop on the ground. The robot fights, at least in the manga, are like way more standard. Like,
Mhm.
honestly, I felt they're more of a chore to read. I just wanted him to get through the fight so I could get on to the next kid, you know?
Same.
Like,
Same.
and I feel like that's a key point right there. Like, you know, the author of Bokurano, he also did another series that was a deconstruction. That's kind of his thing. And it's called Shadow Star. And it's his
Mm.
take on the monster raising franchise.
Does that one have a bunch of pedophilia as well?
It's probably got rife of horrible things. I mean, I think I read one. I think I hopped into it. Sometimes I'll just hop in at a random point just to see like
Because like
an
okay,
out of
like
context snippet,
we
just
we
to
need
be
we
safe about that stuff. And like
we
I
need
hopped
to
in. Yeah,
we need to talk about like the fucking pedophilia in this manga. And like I know we've
yeah.
been kind of dancing
That.
around it, but like that was
No,
one of those
we need
things
to
that was
talk
like
about that.
that was like truly uncomfortable for me to read through. And I know it's supposed to be, but like at that point in the manga, I was kind of like,
I honestly,
to what end is he doing this? Like this just
yeah,
seems exploitative. And like I kind of like ended up being okay with it later on once like the themes were more like thoroughly rounded out and like you kind of had the perspective of each of the children. But he front loads the manga with the most horrific shit almost at the beginning because Chizuru is only like the second or third kid for this shit to happen to. And so when
let's
you're on like
see.
volume 3 and suddenly like all of this like horrific fucking like child rape is happening, you're like, I don't know, at least for me, like I feel like that's going to be a hard barrier to
And
entry for people.
it is, and it's one of those things where I think honestly there needs to be a guide made. I might do it. I might make a guide
Yeah.
that is going to allow people to figure out these kinds of red flags on shit. Because
Yeah.
I know, yeah, no. And the sad thing is, some people, and you're sick. You're sick. I'm looking at you. If you think that Lolicon and Shotokan are cool, you should just get off here. Like
Yeah, we do not
we do not condone
endorse
anything
any of that.
that, like, look, we'll read this stuff mainly so that we could get a feeling for the readers, the listeners, and let them know, hey, if you want deconstructed robot anime, go for it. But you know, I forgot about a lot of that stuff when I recommended this.
Yeah.
We said we were gonna do it. We followed through with it. In one of the weird cases, I'll tell people like, look, if this series might be a little too hard for you. I mean, it's different than, you know, Parasite, where you're going to see somebody cut in half. Like, this is
Yeah.
literally like, these are 7th grade children, and like for some reason, and I know the artist, I don't know if the artist does the whole, like, you know, I don't know how you could sit there and draw a 7th grader going through some of the stuff that the 7th grader
Yeah,
girl,
there
we're
were
gonna just talk, I read Battle
can I make
Royale.
can I
Oh
make a
yeah,
point? Yeah,
yeah,
there are ways to portray those themes and kind of not sanitize but do it in a way that you're essentially getting around actually depicting it, but you could still have that stuff there. Whereas like as far as I'm concerned
like
while
Kimmy
reading
Schmidt.
it, yeah exactly, yes, there was weird sex stuff in the bunker, but yeah, so like while reading Bokurano, because of how graphically this stuff is depicted, there's always that concern of like, is the author getting off on this? And what is the morality of actually drawing something like this? And that's one of
Yeah,
those things that like it's hard for me to get past as a reader because like I'm not sure if I'm
it makes it
okay
hard for me to
with
recommend this to other people.
I'm not sure if I'm okay with that stuff actually being depicted, even if it is simulated on a page.
No, 110% I agree. Like,
Yes.
it's one of those things where, like, stuff exists. My Chance Daily Life's a thing.
Yeah.
You can't scrub your brain of that once you've seen it. Like,
I did, but thanks for reminding me of that. I
nah,
thought it
you
was
can't do
gone.
that. It's like that scene from One Piece where I was just imagining a mermaid for the first time. Yeah, the first time I met one.
Yeah.
So, honestly, for anybody really listening, it's one of those things where you gotta be careful with this stuff, especially like, I don't even know how this stuff even makes it to America or in any way
Because that's
without getting
illegal.
filtered. It is
You're
illegal.
not allowed to draw and depict that stuff
No.
here.
If somebody did that over here, they would be shit canned for life.
That's
Like,
probably why
even
it
if
didn't get
Justin Roiland did
distribution.
it, yeah. and that, Bokurano probably like it gets distributed over here.
Well, yeah, the anime is on like I watched it through
The
a legal
manga too.
channel. Yeah.
So
Like
is Dance in the Vampire Bun. That was sold at Barnes and Noble.
yeah.
And that was one where it's like, oh, but she's actually 4,000 years old. She just chooses to look like an 8-year-old girl. I'm like, no, a grown man gets paid and chooses to draw an 8-year-old girl like that. All right.
Yeah.
So as far as I look at it, I do feel like they need to put maybe an advisory for that stuff directly on the series, even if it's not in that direct volume like that.
Not safe for life.
No. and that's what I'm gonna get at too, is like, what, this series definitely, do you feel like it would have had a different weight if these were adults?
Yeah, it would have been a completely different series.
Yeah, because you have, these kids,
like they have to be
I think
kids.
the key of
like
having the kids,
the loss of innocence.
Yeah, it's the loss of innocence, the ignorance, it's the, it's the fact that, they haven't lived on the earth. Assumably, you'd assume kids haven't lived on the earth long enough to have any kind of reason to protect an entire planet.
Yeah.
But yet, we put kids in robots all the time and tell them protect the planet all over the place in other universes, So that's kind of like where the series kind of goes. It's like most robot animes, the kids hop in, they're still kids when they get out of the robot. This series is like they all went into that robot, and after they got enough information to know what's going on with this robot and seeing death enough, like,
yeah, they had to man up and actually like take on some adult shit, basically. And the kids
like,
were able to handle that better than the adults probably would have.
And like, like that one girl whose mom was a prostitute, that was one of the better stories.
Yeah, it was
lighter. Great. Like,
but it's because these kids have been exposed to the adult world, whether they like it or not. All of these kids have been damaged in some way where they've grown up faster than they should have.
And they really reveal that more to each other. And we as the viewers see it through these other kids being shown these kids through these experiences. Like we kind of learn about them as much as they all do, because not all of them know each other that well. Like they met at a summer camp.
Yeah, they're all kind of strangers, except for like the couple that already knew each other.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like we're kind of in a similar position as the audience, because we don't know the kids either until we start to.
Yeah. And even till the end, I still think June is a dickhead.
He is a dickhead.
He's a dickhead. He's smacking his sister all the time.
Yeah, don't smack your sister. That's if you get anything out of Bokurano, it should be don't smack your sister, whether she's related by blood or not. It's not nice. Don't hit people.
Just don't be a dickhead.
Don't be a dickhead.
Don't be an Ushira. I mean, honestly though, it is a hard series to recommend people. And I know we've been reading the manga, and it's actually one of those really weird predicaments that I get put in where I'm like, I feel the manga is superior thematically and narratively than the anime. The anime does have some cool robot fights, and I love the animation. They somehow get a consistent feeling at dusk.
The opening song is good too.
Yeah.
Uninstall. Yeah, I fucking love that. Yeah, that's a great opening theme.
They show like the guy Copelli like looking like he's the main antagonist at the end. He's only in it for like 3 minutes. Yeah. It's all the way to the very end. They always show him like,
yeah,
I was in this at one point.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's one of those things where, especially because of the cheesier stuff, it makes it recommending the manga hard, and it makes, I don't know. It makes recommending the series in general hard, but I'm gonna tell people like, I don't know. It's up to you. It's up to you. If you're willing to deal with that, go ahead. But honestly,
know that stuff is in there before you read it, basically.
Yeah, we didn't. Yeah. Like I should remember that. And then I get to it. I'm like, I'm gonna have to talk about this.
Yeah.
All right.
Kind of dug our own graves there.
Yeah. But I mean, it's definitely a thing though. I mean, Naruto turns into like freaking naked women on his show, and people laugh and are like, Jiraiya is so funny asking a 12-year-old boy to turn into a naked girl. Like that's funny. That's not creepy at all.
If you play it for comedy, it's okay. Besides, as long as the girl looks like she's of age, we're cool with it.
Yusuke shoving his fingers up Kuwabara's ass is still sexual harassment, no matter how you look at it.
Yeah, but that's just boys being boys.
But like, yeah, that's one thing that, you know, especially if we have new people to the stuff, like, oh yeah, I checked out your little talky bit about Death Note because I knew that one from the tubes. And
Yeah. And then
yeah.
we go straight from Death Note to fucking Bokurano, and everyone's like, "Oh, what's this?"
Well, I mean, honestly though, that's a societal thing too. Like,
Mm,
I don't like murdering people, and I don't like sexing people against their will.
I like
Um,
murdering people.
but the thing is, like, you know, like Battle Royale, you're reading that and you're like, man, the way she cut that dude's head off was pretty awesome. And then, you know, you're just like, oh, there's sexy times now. No, this is
Well, yeah,
bad.
Battle Royale kind of gets away with it though, because they're all drawn to look a lot older. Like the kids that are depicted in this look like they're 12.
I
Like,
mean, I'm gonna say outright though, like, it's just gonna be something you're gonna run into.
yeah,
Like My Hero Academia, very popular. Everybody loves it. You have guys who are proud parents walking their kids in All Might hoodies and all that.
mhm.
Have you seen how half those girls are drawn? Not even the
Yeah,
adults. Like, it's going to be something where you're going to have to realize that as an adult, you're reading something that is meant for a broad age spectrum, and the easiest way to sell stuff is to draw girls in certain ways. And the etchy thing's going to just be something you're going to run into no matter what you're. I mean, that's why I kind of like Death Note. It avoided a lot of that stuff. Like,
yeah. Death Note didn't have a bunch of anime
Bokurano is
titties.
not something you could put on in the living room and have your family walk in and out of. I'm sorry. For the most part, yeah. But there's going to be times where you're like, shit, what episode is this? You know, kind of deals. I don't know. But I don't know. At the end of the day, though, it's up to you, everybody, to you gotta censor and filter yourself. You gotta do whatever. But
Yeah, it's whatever your own line is. Like that's your personal business of what you want to expose yourself
yeah,
to. But it's just good to warn people that like this stuff is
at
in
least
there.
in Bokurano, it doesn't go quite as explicit and excessive as other series.
Yeah.
The author gives you enough to know what happens and skedaddles out.
Yeah,
So
it's not detailed, which is nice,
and
but
honestly, that character Chizuru was one of my favorite characters.
yeah.
Like, I just the pure amount. Like, I have no like she reminded me of the bride from Kill Bill. Like,
Hmm.
don't like you know what? You're gonna do something horrible to a chick like that. Don't complain if she comes back with a giant robot.
But
Like, you
her
know,
revenge arc was not fun like Kill Bill. Her revenge arc was like this is a broken person that's
yeah,
just
it's
trying to
sad.
like
It's very
make her
sad.
world right a little bit.
And
Yeah.
like let me put this out there too. This is going to be a series where if anybody reads it, they're going to have like favorite arcs that aren't going to be like because they in particularly like them.
Yeah.
It's just more powerful than some of the others. And it's going to vary person to person. Like, I
Yeah.
think Kirie's was probably one of my favorites because
Yeah, same
just
here.
the fact that he's willing to sit there and have that discussion with someone.
I think my favorite moment in the entire manga was when he isn't sure if he wants to fight or not, and then he teleports himself outside of the robot, and the other girl teleports herself outside of her robot, and they lock eyes, and they have that moment, and that gives him the conviction to actually fight once he realizes that the other person is a willing participant and they're both on the same page. He almost like he needed to get that consent before he was ready to like try and kill this other person. And it's almost like it was almost like a touching gloves moment of like a street fight versus like an MMA fight of like we're locked in a cage and we're both agreeing to do this versus like I'm doing this to you and you don't want this to happen to you. And I feel like that was actually a really powerful moment where like Kyrie was actually able to like become like his fight isn't even depicted in the manga. Like that's what's so great about it. Like his arc is over once once he develops the will to fight. That's another reason why the manga is so good because it doesn't need to depict the battles. The battles aren't the point. Like the point was that Kyrie had finally like
Accepted his
guard yeah
responsibility.
accepted his responsibility and decided that he was going to fight, and then you don't even need to like show the battle after that.
There's no
That's his
Denji
arc
getting
is
the
over.
robot.
Yeah.
There's no big epic fight. It's
Yeah.
literally just he's the first he's the front and center star.
Yeah.
entirely of his arc for a character that essentially was a background
Yeah,
character.
and depicting his fight would have undercut that moment. Like, I don't know, like it was good. Also, another thing that I loved, the fact that in the manga, Chizuru actively kills Kana rather than accidentally killing him
Oh yeah.
when she stabs him
Or
in the neck. Like
yeah.
I appreciated that the manga was able to give Kana that agency rather than just like in the anime, like she kicks him and accidentally kills him. Like it still kind of turns her into a helpless victim. Whereas in the manga, it kind
She
of
tells
shows
him outright, "I'll kill you if you don't take this seriously." And the guy started running away. So she
it's like, what are you gonna do? Stab me? And then he gets stabbed.
I'll be right back. I'll be right back.
Wait. Actually,
What was that?
do you wanna end it here or what's up?
Oh sure, we could end it here.
It seems like you gotta go somewhere.
I gotta go to the bathroom.
You gotta go to the bathroom. Okay, let's just end it here then. Okay, so we talked about pretty much everything. Thanks for listening. Next week we're going to be talking about Akira. So we're going to be talking about the manga as compared to the classic 1980s movie. And with Bokurano, I think we could both agree, don't watch the anime, but read the manga.
Yeah, read the manga. We finally got to episode 3, and we're telling you to outright go read the manga this time. Not
Read
like
the
the first 2, where it's like the anime is actually a little better. No, this one,
the manga is
the
clearly
manga.
better. Yes, read the manga at your own risk. All right. Anyway, see you next time.